Hello and welcome to Harnessing Happiness with myself, Sarah J. Naylor. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by another Sarah. Hurrah! You can't get enough Sarahs in this world, that's what I say. And I do seem to be collecting Sarahs at the moment. I don't know why. A bit of a Sarah magnet for Sarahs. But let me hand over to the lovely Sarah to introduce herself to you all, because everybody knows that my guests do a far better job than I do. Sarah, over to you. Please do introduce yourself to my wonderful audience.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'm also collecting Sarah's. It's a bit strange, isn't it? It must be something in the air. So thank you so much for your invite to your lovely podcast. I'm Sarah Brown Haté. So as you can probably tell already from my name, I'm half English and now I would say even half French. I was born in England and moved to France when I was a young adult because it was my childhood dream. And I've been here for quite a long time now. And what I really, really love doing above everything else is working with high achieving women to help them with their relational well-being. And we focus on communication, confidence, and connection.
Magical stuff. And, Sarah's really not told us everything, of course, what she does, but she does so much, and she works very much energetically and with the moon cycles, and she's got a radio show, and she's got all sorts of things going on, and it's all rather magical. But Sarah, do share, and because I love to inspire the listeners and let them know about the journey that our guests have been on, because I think in life we can get caught up into this suggestion that we need to do this and we need to that by people who think that they know they know better, but actually it's so important to follow your own flow and know what's right for you. Obviously, as you sort of growing up, you need to take a certain amount of guidance, but it is about trusting yourself, trusting your instinct, knowing yourself so well that you trust that, and it's a journey that you go on to follow that. And I know you've been on a bit of a journey yourself over the last however many years. We won't say. Let's be polite. So would you like to not that long, but no, I mean, you started out with languages degree, and as you said, you moved to France, and you've had a career, and you've gone into self-employment, but please do expand, because I think it's inspiring for people to hear the journey that you've been on, because that's how you also help other women.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because, as you know, I could talk forever. But
pair of us can.
But I'm going to take you right back to my younger childhood. And I already felt that I was maybe different, probably different, definitely different to most people. And I was extremely, extremely sensitive, which at the time wasn't necessarily encouraged or supported, let's say, put it that way. And when I was 8, I actually had what I now know to be a near-death experience, which opened me up to the whole invisible world and so much more sensitivity and receptivity. And because I didn't really know what had happened, and none of that was talked about in the 70s growing up, so I just more or less kept that experience to myself and had several different similar experiences as a teenager too. And when I was 8, so that's actually the time I had my near-death experience as well. It was very interesting looking back. I was part of a class where we were taught French, and it was like a trial scheme in the UK to see if young children could learn languages. Well, obviously now today we know that they can, and we know all about, childhood brains and all the rest of it. But I was part of this like pilot project. I absolutely loved French, had no idea what they were saying, but just took it all in, and it felt familiar. It really felt familiar.
Oh, interesting.
And when this is moving into like the self-trust now and just the knowingness that you were mentioning. And something about it just felt really familiar. And when we were 10, our teacher, so we did that for at least, I think, 3 or 4 years until we went to high school. And when we were 10, our teacher took us to Paris for the weekend.
Ooh,
I know, like none of my family had been abroad.
Oh, wow.
That's not true, actually. Two of my granddads, my granddads were posted abroad in the war, but that's something totally different. But, you know, for leisure and whatever, nobody had been abroad. And so I got on a ferry with my class, then on a bus, took us to Paris, had the most fantastic weekend. And I just knew that that was where I would live.
Wow. From such an early age.
From such an early age, exactly. So going back home, saying how fantastic it was, and that's where I want to be when I'm an adult, they're like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. And then it's not as though I forgot that, because I didn't, but I nearly went on a different path.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
when I was studying for my A levels, I didn't really want to go down the literature route. And if you were a linguist, it was they were sort of like forcing you in a way down the literature route, and I didn't want to do that. So I actually studied French, maths, and physics. So I had
Mm.
like the logical, I know, but I know now why it was physics. It was because I love all of the quantum world and the metaphysical. That's what I was
Ah,
attracted to.
yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so I was adamant that I was going to study physics at university, except that my grades were really low and my grades for French were really high, and I wasn't putting in any work in French. So literally, like 6 months before we're due to go to uni, I pivoted and
Oh.
went to study French and linguistics.
Followed your flow. I mean, the path of
Followed
least
my
resistance.
flow.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what the careers advisor said. She was like really supportive, but she said, Sarah, you know, I know a little bit about you, your background, your abilities. And she said, are you really sure that you want to try and get into university to study physics? And so she had a really great discussion with me. And I was like, yeah, I can see your point. And that was the first sort of real pivot, if you like, in my life, which then took me down the path of coming and fulfilling the childhood dream. And ever since then, I've been on a path of trying to trust myself. I trust myself implicitly now, but at the time, trying to trust myself, trying to reconnect to all of the childhood experiences that I'd had that I hadn't understood at all, and really uncovering, if you like, everything that was just within me, but that I didn't know was there.
So, you know, you've mentioned the childhood experience. Are you happy to share what that was and what
Yes.
that looked like? You know,
Yeah.
because that would sort of give a sort of a would demonstrate what you went through, which other people might have had experiences
Yes.
of as well.
Yeah. And this has definitely helped me now in my role, because there are people who've experienced it, like you say, don't know how to talk about it, who maybe even don't dare talk about it because it is the invisible. It's something that maybe you don't really comprehend. So yeah, and I only realized this is what it was when I was at uni, and I went to see the film. I think it's called Flatliners. It was a film with
Okay.
Julia Roberts and a couple of others. Can't remember who else. And basically, it was a story of 5 medical students who wanted to see if they could actually die and then come back to life.
Yeah.
So I went to see that, and I had chills. And saying this to you now, I'm getting all the chills again. That was like the moment where I was, but that is similar to what I experienced as a child. So that was like the door opening up. Oh, it's going right through me.
And me. It's gone up and down, up and down.
Exactly, exactly. So that was the door that opened up this new world for me, and also not only reconnected me to that, but then showed me what I'd actually experienced. So when I was 8, I went up to stay with my grandma and granddad, because when I was little, my parents moved away from all of our blood family. So we would only see them once, twice a year. And because I was, quote unquote, grown up enough to go up there with them on my own without my mum and dad, I went to stay with them and see my cousins for a couple of weeks. During that time, I remember having a little bit of a toothache. It wasn't that bad. Told my grandma, she took me to the dentist. I'm condensing the story. He had a look at my teeth. I was scared to death. He had a look at my teeth and said he had to take 2 of them out. So there was no discussion. My grandma obviously agreed to that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I remember before waking up a long time afterwards was him putting the mask over my face, getting me to breathe so that I could go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I remember that terrified me.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it, as a child? I mean, it's
Yeah,
terrifying. You're in a situation which is something out of anything that's familiar to you. That's the point, isn't it?
yes,
It's not familiar. It's has that sort of, there's an imposition on you as a child out of your control, because as
yes,
you reach that age, you're starting to be able to make decisions for yourself, aren't you? Because up to 7 you can't, but then
yes,
you still
yeah,
can't.
exactly. So I remember this vividly, even today, in the chair with the mask on my face, having to breathe in, and I actually was trying to get the mask off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty forceful. And then I remember being woken up. I could hear somebody calling my voice, but from a very, very, very far place,
Mm-hmm.
because where I was in a beautiful space of beautiful white light, very, very tall, luscious green grass. And I was just there and I was dancing and just like floating and flowing, and I was just loving it,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely loving it. And I remember the feeling and wanting to stay there, and then hearing my voice, which obviously I realize now was them trying to wake me up, basically. But I had gone into this other dimension. I was somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt so loving and peaceful and calm and welcoming. And I was on my own. I could sense maybe other beings. I don't know. I couldn't see anything else apart from, as I've just said, this white light and this luscious green grass. And I've since had past life regressions, and I've seen not something similar to that, but it's the same sort of feeling and whatever. So I know that that's what I experienced.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I woke up, they were extremely worried about me, because I should have woken up maybe an hour or two or three before. I don't know, but they were very, very, very worried because I'd
Mm.
been out far too long, far too long.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? You've just triggered a memory for me.
Oh, really?
Yes. Childbirth and gas and air. And it's like, yes. And you're
Yes.
just like, and like, it's just like, and I think I'd just literally stopped breathing because I'd had the gas and air,
Yeah.
lots of inhales of gas and air, but it was just like all that you've just described. It was
Yes.
just like
Yeah.
amazing. And then you got this, Sarah, breathe, breathe. What?
Yes.
Quite happy where I am, thank you.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then it's like,
So,
oh my gosh, your body is the shock of childbirth. Good Lord.
yes. Yeah. And then you're sort of like back in your body, and it's sort of like, what's going on. And I felt then that something had shifted in me, but
Mm,
obviously at the age of 8 and not being able to express it and whatever, it was really quite difficult at the time. And then I
mm.
remember just wanting to go home back to mom and dad, and it was quite a traumatic experience, the whole thing.
Yeah,
So
because I would say you're away from your family. You're in a
yeah,
scenario, in a situation which is completely unfamiliar, as you say,
yeah,
completely out of your control, and not knowing, and then you're having teeth removed as well, and the whole thing. There's a trauma that impacts your body. There
yes,
really is. It's your whole body is going into, well, there's a shock element, and you're shifting energy, because we're all energy anyway, aren't we? And you're shifting all that about, and then it's going to have that reverberation effect. It's, yeah,
yes,
understandably so. But that was pivotal in part of your journey, though, wasn't it? So
yes, yeah,
that whole experience was clearly meant to be for you to go
definitely.
down the path you're on now. So how did it sort of open up to you when you moved to France? Because you didn't start work as a coach straight away, or doing what you did?
No, 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 no. I was One of my dreams was to become a translator for the European Commission. That was one
Hmm.
of my dreams. And then I became pregnant with our eldest around the time of, the entrance exams and everything else, and it
Hmm.
would have meant going to Brussels. There was so much going on, and pregnancy was a difficult one. So it was just like the universe is obviously saying it's not right now.
Hmm.
So at the very beginning of my career, I was a freelance translator, and I also became an English language trainer, which wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do at all, but it was just like, a lot of us fall into these things.
Yeah.
And what I quickly realized was I love helping people, and I love the connection with people, and I love communication. on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So that has always been with me. And then back in 2008, I had a real experience of mind-body connection and how I had become totally disconnected from my body,
Mm-hmm.
totally focused on the mind and controlling, and this is what I want my life to be like and what everybody else's lives need to be like around me. And I was bedridden for weeks because I had a massive slip disc at the base of my spine and my right leg was paralyzed. And at the time, the only option from the medical profession was to obviously have that operation.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just something in me that was saying, no, that isn't the path for you. So that's when the trust came back in. And that's when I felt that I had two options, basically. It was either to carry on and listen to everybody else, and their advice can be good. I'm not saying it's not. So if anybody's listening or watching, medical advice is there to be listened to, not necessarily always taken.
Mm-hmm.
So please don't take my opinion and experience, as like, don't listen to them. But it just felt so wrong in my body. And that was when I said to my GP, I can't do this. I need you to help me to find alternative routes, which he did. And that's when I experienced real energy healing for myself, which is now part of what I offer my
Mm-hmm.
clients. So everything that I offer my clients now, I have experienced. So the energy healing, the emotional healing, I'm a qualified EFT practitioner. I did that first for myself simply because I'd reached a level of mindset work that wasn't deep enough. And I knew and I sensed that it was like in me and I needed to release that. So I did that for myself and was blown away. So I was like, I need to train in that.
And EFT is, I mean, I've had personal experience of EFT and it's transformational. It really,
Yes.
really is. It really does work on the meridian lines, doesn't it? You're tapping and you're working with the subconscious and it shifts the energy and suddenly you think the same things and you go, why am I not responding in the way I was before? It's just like, oh, how strange.
Yeah.
Why is it not bothering me anymore? Because you get stuck energy, don't you, in your system, and it's
Yeah.
it's like a bump in the road that's not been filled in,
It definitely is. And the thing is that a lot of the time, because we are very resilient beings, generally speaking, aren't we? So
Mm-hmm.
we will get all of these bumps in the road and just it's part of the course and just like, yeah, but our body will keep hold of that
Mm-hmm.
and will give meaning to it as well.
Yeah, it gets
So the
anchored, doesn't
idea,
it?
it
Yeah.
does, it definitely gets anchored. And so the idea of that is to really tap into the first, if possible at least, the first time you experience that emotion and then release that. So
Yeah.
like you say, then afterwards, the outcome is you will maybe, probably experience a similar thing and the response will be totally different.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
so I mean, when I went through it, I knew I needed to change my behavior, but I didn't understand what it was that I was doing, enable me to do it consciously.
Yeah.
And sometimes you know exactly what it is that's blocking you, but so the EFT can work. But for me, it was very much, well, I really don't know why. This was after I qualified as a coach. I don't know
Yeah.
why I am behaving in this way. Why is it? I have no idea. I mean, I've got a better idea now, and I think a lot of it was to do with keeping yourself safe and protecting yourself and protecting myself, from, causing angst and relationship problems and things like that. But to release it, and it's people, it's all about doing the inner work, isn't it, Sarah?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
You've got to do the outer work. It's about looking after the whole Trinity, isn't it? In mind, body, spirit.
It's exactly that. It really is that. And that is now the core of my business because it's SBH mentoring, which is Sarah Brown Ethic mentoring, but
Mm-hmm.
also soul-based healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, we need to bring in the spirit soul side of it. A, because of all the experiences I've had, but B, like you've just said, there is a trinity. And the idea is to try and find harmony, not necessarily even balance, but harmony between those three. Because we are all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
to say we are just that or segment it, it can work for specific things, for sure.
Yeah.
But being able to bring it all back and to recreate this whole, because we are all about wholeness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's getting that balance. But I love the word harmony that you put in to place there, because it's accepting yourself for being who you are, and where the things aren't right, it's making those adjustments, because it's about observing yourself, going on that journey of self discovery, exploration, being curious, finding out what it is about what makes you tick, what's stopping you from making you tick, and then going into having, whether it's holistic therapy or coaching or physical stuff or whatever it is that helps readdress that that balance. I just suddenly had the wheel of life popped into my head there, Sarah. One of our coaching tools, going, because obviously when you sort of do that wheel of life, folks, you have a spoke, it's like a wheel, and you have different spokes that indicate different things, usually more than just mind, body, spirit. And you can
Yes.
look on a scale between 0 and 10 where you sit, and you can then see whether the wheel sort of where it's out of kilter, where you need to do work. But just finding that balance, that acceptance, that brings harmony. I was talking to somebody, one of my clients yesterday, and I said, really, I feel that now, these days, with the work that I've done, I feel like I'm in flow a good 90% of the time, possibly more, to be quite honest, which is a
Yes.
brilliant, and I feel really grateful and appreciate this. I've got to that point in my life that just accept things and go with the flow. It makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, it really does. And as you know, the Wheel of Life has inspired one of my recent offers for people, combining that with my love of Oracle cards. And so we use the Wheel of Life as the beginning point, and then we bring in the wisdom, if you like. I like to think it's wisdom of the Oracle cards, because that's part of the invisible world for me. There are always messages in there, and then we can go deeper. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, people, when we're talking about the invisible world, I mean, look at what we are doing right now. I'm talking to Sarah, and Sarah lives in France, near Toulouse. And how can we be doing what we're doing? That's invisible to all of us, but it's happening. So there is so much more in the unseen than there is in the seen. And it's when we sort of take stock of that and understand that and realize that yeah, there's other stuff going on. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Well, exactly. And if you want something really basic, we all breathe. I mean, well, okay. If we are still living on this planet, we are all breathing. And we breathe in something called air, which is, generally speaking, invisible.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So if people are like questioning, well, all of this about the invisible, well, the invisible is vital to us being alive.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's just the journey you go on, the exploration, that curiosity as well. And I know your life has, you've had, even in more recent years, you've had a lot of changes, and you've embraced it. And now you're sort of off, as we're recording, you're off to the UK to run a retreat, and it just sounds amazing. You've got so many things going on, which are absolutely fabulous. And I mentioned your radio show earlier. That's a year old, isn't it? Wellbeing Wednesday on.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's on I'll keep on
Yawa.
Yawa.
Yes.
Yow's
Yawa Radio, which is YOWAH.
Yeah. So I've been a guest. Thank you so much.
You
And it's a
have.
lovely, lovely, lovely show. Oh, Sarah, as you well know, we can usually talk forever. However, oh my gosh, I hope the conversation that we've had today has really sort of given some thought and inspiration and some motivation to all of those of you who are listening across the globe. And it's about taking responsibility for the self, ultimately, isn't it? It's not expecting anybody else to do it for you. You have to come back to yourself, and all the things that are presented to you, they are opportunities to learn. It's when you look at that from a different perspective, and the situations that you've been through have taken you on the path that you're on today, which is going out and helping the world heal, and, like me, making it a happier place.
Exactly. Because my dream, and I feel we're edging there, is a world where love and community reign. So
yeah. Perfect. But just to finish on, what makes you happy? What do you love doing to make you happy, Sarah?
right, to make me the happiest person on the earth, you take me to a sandy beach. That is like the happiest. And I've even got a little plaque here that says, my happy place is the beach, because it really is.
Oh,
it's just fantastic. Even in the dead of winter, I am one of those crazy, or maybe not crazy, people who can be all, you know, snuggled up, bare feet in the sand and paddling in the sea,
Yeah.
because I need that. It's more than just like, you know, something that's nice. That for me is one of my vital needs. And I've realized that over the years. So I do as much as I can to actually be in a place where I can have my feet firmly in the sand.
Yeah.
But apart from that, no, what makes me happy is being able to live my life as I want to live it. And I struggled with that for so many years because, like probably the vast majority of us, conditioning, society, you must do this, you need to do that. And I was also brought up with, you can't do that, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
That was often said to me regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're growing up, and especially in your formative years, and who do you think you are, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
And really very encouraging statements to make. So,
Yes, but then it helps you, you know, it was a gift to help you with people who've gone through a similar experience, because you can help them
yes.
work through that. I mean, there's so many ways, but yeah, absolutely. It
No,
is. It's all
so
about living your life, because as you said, that conditioning is there from school. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I mean, it's just, it's not there. You know, I was talking to somebody about how kids today, you know, they get distracted. They don't want to sit there in a classroom lined up expecting, because I mean, I get distracted, you know, bored now, want
yeah,
to do something
we all
else.
do, but we all do.
And it's
Yeah.
about tapping into that and being able to be yourself. So
Yes.
anyway, I'm with you on the beach, which is why I moved to the sea. Yay. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. How do people get in touch with you? Where's the best place for them to find you?
The best place, which has everything on there, even the links to the radio show replays, is my website. So it's sbhmentoring.com.
Fabulous. And I will put it in the bio at the bottom.
Exactly.
Anyway, so this has been Sarah J. Naylor with the lovely Sarah Brown Haté, and I have had a pleasurable moment, a fabulous morning. That sounded about the wrong thing to say. Fabulous time. And obviously you can get hold of me here, sarahjnaylor.com. And if you just put me into Google, you'll find me all over the place. Anyway, next time, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much. And thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you.